Tell me what your life was like before you died.
I had given a speech that night at a Cutco sales conference. That was my career. I was in Cutco, and a year and a half. Cutco makes high quality kitchen knives. They've been around for 50, 60 years now probably. I think it was the 50th anniversary was the year that I started. And so I gave a speech at the conference, and then I was driving home, and my car was hit head on by a drunk driver at 70 miles an hour. And then the worst, airbags exploded. The worst was actually I spun off the drunk driver, and the car behind me broadsided me, T-boned me at 70 miles an hour in my door. And on my door. And so it crushed the left side of my body, and I broke 11 bones. My leg, my femur, the biggest bone in the human body, broke in half. My pelvis broke in 3 places. It was crushed between the center console. My arm broke in half. This one, my humerus bone broke in 2 pieces, shattered my elbow, severed my radial nerve, shattered the 3 bones in my eye socket. My ear was almost completely severed, and the ceiling buckled, and the metal came through the roof, and it sliced a V in the top of my head. So, and I was immediately, I would imagine I was in a coma. So when they found me, I was in a coma. I'd imagine it's like, I've done a little bit of research, like the body will shut itself down and put you in a coma if you can't withstand the amount of pain, that you're experiencing. Yeah, thank God I wasn't awake. I can't even imagine that. So there's 2 weeks of my life that I don't remember. I don't remember, my last memory is getting on the freeway that night, and the accident happened. You don't remember the accident? I don't remember the accident. Don't remember the headlights coming at me, none of that. And then my first memory, I was in a coma my heart stopped for 6 minutes. I was clinically dead for 6 minutes. And I didn't die until they pulled me out of the car. The car was keeping me alive, all the pressure, but I was losing blood, through all these, just holes in my leg, my arm. And when they pulled me out, it took them an hour to cut the roof off the car and pull the door back to get me out, the jaws of life they had to use. And when they finally did, I bled to death. And my heart was, they said, about 6 minutes that I didn't have a heartbeat, and they immediately were pumping blood. I was put on a helicopter, and they are using defibrillators and all the things to get me back to life. And thank God they didn't give up after 5 minutes, because 6 minutes later, they got my heart beating again. And I spent 6 days in a coma. I flatlined twice more, so I was, nearly died multiple times. And when I came out of the coma, I faced this unimaginable reality, wait, where am I? What's going on? And they're like, Hal, you broke 11 bones. You're probably never going to walk again. You have permanent brain damage. And this was this unimaginable reality that nobody thinks, they're ever gonna have to face. For me, I try to make it applicable for all of us. That's just how I think at that time I started thinking, how is this going to serve me, and how is it going to serve other people? That was the question in my mind. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, because the doctors thought I was in denial because I was so happy and positive. I'm in the hospital being told I'm never going to walk again, and I'm totally happy, totally positive, genuinely. And I'm making jokes and making the doctors laugh. And they called my parents in one day and they said, we're concerned with your son. We believe Hal is not facing reality, and he's just delusional and in denial, and we need you to talk to him. And so this is 1 week after the crash that this conversation, my dad comes in, he goes, hey, I just met with the doctors. They're a little bit concerned with how you're responding to the accident. And they said you should be sad, scared, angry, and depressed, but you're not showing any of that. And they think you're in denial. Yeah, and how are you really feeling, Hal, when the lights go out at night, when there's no friends visiting and you guys are joking and laughing? And he said, are you sad, scared, angry, or depressed? And I really, I'm looking at my dad, by the way, and he's like, eyes are red. He was probably just crying, or he's trying not to cry. And it had been a week of of them by my bedside, not knowing if I was going to live or die, where, he's flatlining again. Doctors, come in, he's flatlining again, right? So yeah, my poor parents, oh my God. And I was the second child that they would have lost. My sister died when when I was 8 years old. My 18-month-old baby sister, on a Saturday morning, I woke up to my mother screaming, my baby, God, don't take my baby. And it was just me, my mom, and my baby sister at home. My other sister was gone, my dad was at work, and I ran across the hall. And my mom was my little 18-month-old baby sister. My mom was pushing on her chest and breathing into her mouth and performing mouth-to-mouth, performing CPR on her. And she died that morning. And within 6 months, my mother was leading a support group for other parents who had lost children. So at 8 years old, that seed was planted that, you take your adversity and you use it to help other people. You take your pain and you find purpose. So when I came out of the coma, that was immediately implanted in me. And when my dad came in that day and he said, the doctors are concerned, Hal, I said, Dad, I'm not depressed. I'm not sad. I'm a little scared of that I don't walk again. But I've already decided, Dad, I've already literally imagined if I never walk again, I've decided I'll be the happiest, most grateful person that you've ever seen in a wheelchair, because that becomes my reality, and I will not let my unchangeable reality determine my mental and emotional well-being. Like, if I can't change it, I'm going to be at peace with it. I'm going to find the gratitude and the love and the joy in the experience. And my dad, and the last thing I said to my dad is, I said, Dad, ever since I started selling Cutco, I've been speaking at all of these Cutco events. I've had this dream of, being like a motivational speaker, like a Tony Robbins or something. I said, but I've had a relatively easy life, like a normal life. Yeah, I was bullied and, but I've never had anything like remarkable happen that I had to overcome. I'm actually taking that as, that's why I'm going through this. I'm supposed to get through this accident in the most positive, proactive way. I'm supposed to learn and grow from it so I can go share it with other people and teach other people. And he went back to the doctors, and I think they thought I was even more delusional when he reported back like, oh man, your son's really out there. They said I'd been there for a year and I'd never walk again. I took my first step 3 weeks after the crash. So 1 week after the doctors called my parents in and said, hey, we think Hal's delusional. He's all happy and positive, and he needs to face reality. He's probably going to be in a wheelchair the rest of his life. And I told my dad, if that's the case, I'm at peace, but that's not where my energy is going. My energy is going into walking with unwavering faith. A week later, the doctors come in with a clipboard and they go, we're looking at these routine x-rays that we took this morning. Hal, you're ready to take your first step. And even for me, I was thinking that was a year off. Even my optimism and my unwavering faith was like, the body can heal, and they say I'm in the hospital for a year. By the end of that year, I'm going to be walking again. And 3 weeks after I was found dead at the scene, broke 11 bones, 2 weeks after I came out of the coma. Yeah, and I've got, metal rod in my arm, screws in my elbow, plates in my eye, rod in my leg. I mean, it is crazy how fast it happened. And they come in and I get in a wheelchair, and my therapist, Bob, my physical therapist, we walk into the therapy room, and there's these parallel bars. Now, I couldn't even use my left hand because I had broken my left hand. I had severed the nerve, so this was the amount of motion I had for 6 months that they never knew if it would come back. So that's also another thing I'm thinking about that I'm dealing with is like, I don't even have a left hand to use. Plus, I might never walk, and that 5-minute rule was like that powerful. Be like, well, if this is how my hand is the rest of my life, this is how my hand is. But thank God my dad took a picture, because we have a picture. I show it when I give speeches. In my keynote, it's like he has a picture of the car, looks like half of a car because of that side impact. And then there's a picture of me with tubes coming out of everywhere and oxygen, and my arm, with rods in it, all that. Then he has a picture of me taking that first step, and Bob rolled me up in the wheelchair. And I took my first step, and that was the first step where I was like, okay, if I can do this, I can do anything. And then I was out of the hospital 4 weeks later. Very soon after I got out of the hospital, I went to court they had the hearing for the drunk driver that hit me head on. And I was asked in the hospital, like, oh, you must want to kill that guy. I said, no. And it's got to be a God thing. I don't know at 20 where this perspective came from. Yeah. But I said, no. I said, he's a 31-year-old guy that drank a few beers at a bar and then got in a car to go home. Why would I be angry at him for any of those things? Raise your hand if you've never drank alcohol and got in a car to drive. I had, in high school, I'd go to parties, have some beers, think, I'm fine to, make bad decisions. But it's like, I wasn't an evil person because I did that. I just was an immature, it's a bad decision. This guy was 31 years old, married. He had a young, like a 3-year-old kid. And so I had zero anger toward him. And when I went to the trial, before the trial, my parents, because I had my brain damage, I was slurring my speech. It was hard for me to even talk, and formulate thoughts. My memory was bad. And so my parents said, hey, we'll speak for you. Or do you want to speak? I said, no, I don't, I'm not ready to get up in front of a bunch of people and talk right now. And they said, we'll speak for you. What do you want? And I guess the attorney had sat down with them and say, hey, and so, and there was like a civil and so my parents they said, we've talked to Hal, and he is asking that because they wanted him to spend 3 years in prison. And my thought is, he's going to be his kids without a dad for 3 years. That suck, And again, he just made a mistake. He didn't try to hurt me. So my request, I talked, and my parents kind of helped. Like, what do you think, Hal? And here's some ideas. And what we requested is that he get 6 months in prison, because I thought he definitely should have that time to ponder, think, reflect, right? But not 3 years. Like 6 months is plenty of time. And then I asked that the rest of the sentence that the court was proposing 3 years, that he had to spend 2.5 years speaking at schools sharing what happened to him to try to actually make a positive impact, because he's not making a positive impact sitting in court in prison. So that's what my parents requested on my behalf. And the judge just was, I don't know, lazy. He was like, I'm not gonna do this creative sentence. We don't, like 3 year, and he just gave him the full sentence. But that was my request, was that, and I never followed it. Like I had, again, no ill will, and I never followed up to, I don't know if he served 3 years. I don't know if he served, I don't know. At that point, it's like, hey, I'm at peace. I forgive. There's no hard feelings. And until I went through cancer and faced losing my kid, or, losing my life and not being around for my kids. And then through chemo and, just sleepless nights and being close to death again and being awake for all of it. And that wasn't until I really went through the dark night of the soul. That was in 2020 for me. Started at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. It was a 6-month period of depression and wanting to die and not sleeping for more than 2 to 4 hours a night, every single night. So one night I woke up struggling to breathe. I went to the ER and they drained almost 2 liters of fluid from my lung. No, it was wild. They stuck a needle in the back of through my spine and drunk. I go home and they said, hey, we think you have pneumonia, or what, I forgot what they said that was. They said, if it doesn't get better, come back. They gave me antibiotics. And then like a day and a half, 2 days later, I can't breathe again, go in. This went on for I think it was 11 days. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And they're sending me to different hospitals and this and that. And finally they diagnosed me with this rare aggressive form of cancer. And my wife was terrified and distraught. I remember though, when I got diagnosed, the doctor he goes, Hal, I want you to come in and get the results. And he goes, well, there's definitely something here. We're seeing some, and he's like beating around the bush. He can't get himself to tell me. And I lean over, I put my hand, he was a new doctor. I just moved to Texas like 2 months before. I have my hand on his arm. I go, hey doc, I can tell you're wrestling with whatever you're going to tell me. I don't know what it is. I said, but I live by this thing called, I'm not kidding, the 5-minute rule. I accept life before it even happens. Whatever you're going to tell me, I'm already at peace with it. He goes, and he kind of breathed this. He goes, okay. He goes, Hal, it looks like you have cancer. And yeah, I go, oh, I didn't expect, I'm like, what? No, because I thought I was healthy and so I'm like, what? And I'm like, okay, dog, what are we gonna do? I am at peace with it. So it was instantaneous peace. And there were definitely moments in prayer like, God, what am I supposed to learn from this? I thought I've learned all the lessons from the car accident. What else could I learn? Yeah, and it was like a lot. I just kept getting a lot to learn. And the biggest lesson I learned is that I thought I valued family first, because if you would have said, what's most important in your life? I would have said, my wife and kids, no questions asked. And so that's the shift. And now it's waking my kids up in the morning with a puppet show. I did that for so many years until they start, Dad, we're done with the puppet show. Putting them to bed, reading stories. Like when I went through my cancer journey, I immediately shifted my behavior, taking them to school, picking them up from school, to spend time with my family. Give yourself permission to take a break from all of the painful, detrimental, difficult emotions that maybe you're experiencing that aren't serving you. Put them in a book, put them in writing, close the book, and let those emotions lie there and just be free. You are free. That's the last thing I would say, is to realize you're free. You're free to think, feel, and experience whatever you choose to experience. So accept what you can't change, be at peace with reality, journal the things that you are feeling, let them go, put them in writing, and then choose freedom. Choose to be free to experience love, joy, peace, gratitude, forgiveness, whatever you need to heal in this moment. And you'll eventually keep doing that every day, and life will be different in the future than it is now, in a good way.